once again. This is again our last study for the Lunar New Year. Then comes Chinese New Year next week. So this is a special study on priorities. Ādhipateyya Sutta. This very helpful teaching to guide us to get things right in our life. In other words, priorities. Ādhipateyya, A3.40. Anguttara Book of 3, Sutta number 40. Not just priorities, but priorities that bring us liberation. After all, that's what Buddhism is about. Buddhism is about freedom of body, freedom of mind, freedom in the spiritual sense. Right? One of one. Now look at the spelling. Ādhipateyya, the first A, so there's a long vowel, Ādhipateyya. The Western manuscripts, European manuscripts often make the error of shortening the vowel, Ādhipateyya. These are sometimes the spelling we've got to watch out. Ādhipateyya is a very interesting word. The Thais pronounce it as att'ādhipateyya. And from this word, you see, all you need to do is you just add certain words in front of it. For example, you see the three priorities. You have the first priority is called att'ādhipateyya. Atta means self. Ādhipateyya means priority. Pateyya means supremacy, lordship, influence, and what else? Governing or dominant or controlling quality. Right? So the meanings are given to you in the first part there. The analysis or resolution of this compound, you have Adi, first part is Adi, short R. Adi is very similar to Abhi. It means supreme, higher. And then Pati means Lord or King even. Sometimes can also mean husband. It's very similar to Sami. So Lord, and then the Eyya here makes it an abstract noun. So Ādhipateyya is an abstract noun. Something, you can translate something like supremacy, if you like. So the second Ādhipateyya is lok'ādhipateyya, the supremacy of the world. Here meaning the world as our priority. And the third one is dhamm'ādhipateyya. The Dhamma is the supreme authority. Dhamma is our priority. So these are the three priorities according to the Sutta. Now the Thais adopted this word and they added the word praja in front of it. Praja meaning people. Of course, they use a Sanskrit word which is praja. Praja actually, but they pronounce praja. So the word becomes prajātipateyya, and that's the word for democracy. Because if you look at the Pali word, praja or praja means people, Ādhipateyya, supremacy of the people. So that's democracy. So it's very interesting how the Thais form their words. And of course, we need to know at which point did the Thai consciousness first became aware of democracy. Probably during Chulalongkorn's time or maybe earlier. So they use Pali and Sanskrit to form many of these new words. So in that way, their culture also has got a very deep sense of ideas of various qualities and values. Now, in this sutta, we're talking about priorities. In a sense, what are our priorities? As you know, often, in my time anyway, nowadays maybe less often, people think of New Year as a time of making resolutions. But at least people think, okay, in this new year, this is what I want to do. Or the company will say, this is our target, right? So this is a guideline on how can we do this. So in other words, whenever we think of priorities, the very first priority is obvious. It is we ourselves. We got to put ourselves first. In the sense of, if you don't help yourself, no one will help you. Of course, if you stop there, then it is selfishness. But we don't stop there. We begin there. Just as the common universal saying goes, charity begins at home. And in Buddhism also we say the same thing, and we also say love begins at home. Loving kindness begins not only at home, it begins with yourself. When we say charity begins at home, it means with ourselves. It begins with each of ourselves and then with the family. And then we direct our activities to others, to the world. Right? So the second priority is the world. And then, of course, there is something higher than self and world. Because self and world are still worldly, not awakened. So the highest priority or higher supremacy, or in other words, if we decide something, we definitely have to place the highest authority, highest preference, if you like, to the Dharma. So the Dharma is of the highest priority. Of course, not all of us have this kind of priority in a sense 1, 2, 3 like this. Okay? For example, people who do not know Buddhism, they might put self first, just as is listed in the sutta here. Because if you are serious for the Dharma, then you put the Dharma first. Of course, in the case of the Bodhisattva, you might say the Bodhisattva puts the world first, if you like. The Bodhisattva puts the world first, or society first, in the sense that the Bodhisattva has to learn. Although we talk of Bodhisattvas sacrificing all kinds of things, including their own life, at the same time this Bodhisattva is learning what suffering is, what it is like not to have an arm or a leg, what it is like to suffer. And through that learning, over many, many lives, this Bodhisattva becomes the Buddha. In a sense, of course, in the traditional stories, we are told that this Bodhisattva actually makes a vow, and then he acts it out, so to speak. But if you look in reality, we really have no control over ourselves, even if we make vows, no matter how fervent, you know. Of course, making a vow helps us to direct our energy. So if someone says, I make this vow to become a Bodhisattva, or become a Buddha, meaning become a Buddha. So when you say you want to be a Bodhisattva, the meaning is become a Buddha, actually, according to early Buddhism. Your mind will somehow be geared towards this direction of the highest generosity, highest wisdom, highest effort, and so on. But you must remember, it's like we are, what shall we say, like you shoot an arrow, this arrow flies, you know, and that's the direction it would take. Of course, there are other things that may affect it, the wind, temperature, maybe there's something blocking the arrow. So this arrow will move. But in the case of the Bodhisattva, in the case of Buddha, when he took the vow, his vow is very strong, it's in his mind. So his direction is going to be quite clear where he's going. But we must also remember he went through many lives. Countless lives. Right? Even he was born as even animals. And even as an animal, he was wise, he was clever. As a deva, as a spirit. In other words, he's reborn in all the realms, even the suffering states. But one interesting point is that the Bodhisattva is never reborn in the Suddhavasa. As you know, Suddhavasa, only non-returners live there. So that's what one place is not reborn in. So the Buddha, in other words, is someone who has gone through all kinds of suffering imaginable. And he is a real PhD in suffering, if you like. Yeah? And that's why we call him Buddha. Of course, although he's taken the vow, at some point, let's say as an animal, he will be aware of this vow. So it's kind of, that's the way he would behave, naturally. And it's very important to understand, once you make a vow, then your life will be going along that line in a natural, it's easier for you to do good than do bad. As a bodhisattva, of course, you may still do some kind of bad things, unintentionally, probably, most likely, but it is easier for him to do good things. This idea of nature, the vow, is important for us to understand, because even today, you go to different temples, you find a lot of Buddhists or so-called Buddhists, they're still not sure what they want as a Buddhist. I mean, I'm a Buddhist, so what's my goal in life? That is something they're not sure about. And I'm happy to say that through studying the suttas, I'm quite sure what my goal in life, that is to be a stream winner in this life itself. And to me, this is not difficult because of the way the Buddha has taught it. The point is, many of these people, they raise this question, oh, it's so difficult for me to do this, how do we do this, I'm not that strong, how can I ever become a stream winner? And of course, we talk about an arahat, it's totally out of the layman's league, if you like. This non-returner and arahat is meant for the monastics who meditate, attain jhana, so they can overcome craving, attachment to sense pleasures of the physical kind, especially because they experience joyful mental states. Stream winning, once returned, is the goal for lay people, because as long as we keep the 5 precepts properly, we should have no problem becoming stream winners. Why is becoming stream winners so important? Because if we don't aim ourselves towards attaining the goal of stream winning, then the likelihood is we could be reborn in the subhuman planes, in the hell states, in the preta states, in the asura states, in the animal state. Then it'll be very difficult to get out of that kind of state. You can't practice a dharma then. So we should at least aspire to become stream winners. Now, aspiring is, in a sense, the action is very similar to taking a vow, but it is not as strong as a vow, although the effect is good enough. You simply say, in this life itself, I want to be a stream winner. Now, it's not a promise here, right? So you won't break it, is it? It's just that you are saying, okay, this coming holiday, I want to go to a certain place for my holidays. You must have a goal that you plan, is it? But if you don't go to that place for your holiday, it's still okay. So in a sense, there's no loss there. If you aspire to be a stream winner, there's no loss. Just saying it, by all the good deeds I've done in this life, I want to be a stream winner. But there's a way of doing this. The best occasion to do this is when we have done something really good, peaceful, wholesome, especially a deep meditation. Why? Because when you're in deep meditation, your mind is temporarily clear of defilements. And the moment you come out of it, when you make all those aspirations, or even about to be Buddha, they are very strong. By the end of this study, we make that aspiration. So once you make aspiration, that means you are telling your mind, this is where I want to go. It's just like you come up, this New Year's coming, so you say, okay, I'm going to go shopping, buy something, so you have in mind this place you want to go. Then you set your time, you prepare yourself, you get your transport, you go to the place, then you get things done. So that's how aspirations work. You must have this kind of goal in this sense. Now the next thing is, how do we make it happen? We make it happen by studying more and more about who a stream winner is, what are the things that define a stream winner, what are the qualities we need to cultivate, things like that. Right? So, for example, the Sutta S25.1, it says that you can do this by mere faith. In other words, you don't need to know deep suttas, mere faith, because if we reflect on impermanence, it's so simple. You just say, I believe impermanence is universal. Simple as that. Or you can use your wisdom to research, study the suttas. Two faculties, either faith or wisdom. Either one. And so, how does it work? We reflect on impermanence regularly, habitually. So we're creating this wonderful habitual karma. So much so that when the last moment comes, we have been habitually reflecting on impermanence. It's so natural, our mind reflects on impermanence. Now, you all have done a lot of good things in your life. None of us here would ever think of murdering somebody. None of us would think of robbing a bank. And so on, right? Because we have been building up this good karma all the way. So, this highest good karma is reflecting on impermanence. So when the last moment comes, the last moment of life, you have no control over it. It's a momentum. It just moves on by karmic force. Most other beings were craving. Craving will push them into what? Into the intermediate state. You get caught up there, undecided to come or to go. But if you have this wonderful good karma based on habitually reflecting on impermanence, you are pushed ahead into streaming. So that's how it works. No? This is the priority for many people. Alright, so coming back to this sutta on the priority. So first of all, there is self-priority. Here, att'ādhipateyya, self-supremacy. So if you do make any resolutions, New Year resolutions, or planning for the New Year, it's obvious you think of yourself, right? I want to be happier, maybe I want to be richer, I want to set certain things right, lose some weight, get healthier, whatever. That is an example of self as priority. Of course, if you are really informed Buddhist, you would say, I want to know more Dharma, I want to study more suttas, maybe meditate a bit more, go for some retreat, or even have my own personal retreat. Of course, in Singapore, it's fashionable to go for retreats. There are even executive retreats. But in the Buddha's time, if you're serious, you go for solitary retreat. Solitary retreat. So you don't need to join the big groups. What you can do is go and rent some quiet room somewhere, or maybe borrow a friend's bungalow. Maybe a friend tells you, could you take care of my house while I'm gone? Wow, that's a wonderful opportunity to go on solitary meditation retreat. Those days when we still had a community of lay workers, many of our full-time lay Buddhist workers, once a year, they would go for solitary meditation retreat. So what we do is, this person will go to some friendly monk's temple, some monks who come to our courses. This monk's temple is far away in some remote place in Kedah or somewhere, quiet place. And he has little kutis in the forest. So we ask permission, and so this person will go there for his retreat. So this personal meditation retreat is better than a group retreat. Of course, you must get used to it, because some people are not used to the idea of being alone. I remember someone told me, a lot of Singaporeans go to Perth, to Jana Growth for their retreat. Of course, it's a great, glamorous idea to go to Australia, go for this wonderful place for retreat. It's a beautiful place. But once the people reach that place, okay, at first very nice, I admire it, and then suddenly lights out, all is dark, and you all have your rooms by yourself. Suddenly, some of them, a few of them, felt really lonely. And the next morning they said, I want to go home. I want to go home. They suddenly felt so afraid. Everything is dark, you see. So this is a challenge, So this is where the friends, of course, would help. The teacher would say, don't worry, one more day, And if you come with a group, that helps in this kind of situation. Because we expect retreat to be something glamorous. It's not glamorous. It's hard work. You're facing yourself. So if you do your solitary retreat, in a sense, it's more beneficial for you. In fact, all those great arahats, they got enlightened. The typical story is they go to the Buddha, they ask for a short teaching. The Buddha will give them maybe teachings on the five aggregates or teaching on Satipatthana, and then they reflect on that, and they do their meditation, all by themselves. And then the sutta will say, in no long time, they attain arahathood. Of course, we may not attain arahathood by ourselves, but still, reflecting permanence is a wonderful practice, preparing for supreme awakening. So that is an example of self as a priority. Self as priority also means we are very mindful and careful of what we do, where we are, and the actions we do, what kind of consequences does it have for us. It keeps us safe. This is very important. One of my students, a very wonderful man, he once told me, he says, sometimes he's been offered all kinds of chances to break precepts. He says, whatever bad thing you want to do with someone else, you better tell yourself. Even if it is secret, sooner or later, someone will know. Sooner or later, other people will know. This is another important thing in this sutta. We cannot hide the bad things that we do, no matter how well we do it, how hard we try. The world will know. So this is the second priority, the second supremacy of the world. So in other words, we also tell ourselves, if I want to be happy, I should respect society, I should respect the world. So I should not do anything that will make me look bad in the eyes of the world. Of course, some of us may think, so what, the world is samsara, not everybody thinks right. After all, the Buddha did say his teachings against the current, Patisottagami, and the Buddha is so different from others in his time. Well, the point is, in the suttas, there is a special group of people, in a sense, we take to mean the world. These are the Vinyu Jana. Vinyu means those who know, the wise. These are the kind of people we respect. People who are kind, who are also wise, skillful. These are the kinds of people we respect. Right? So if a teacher is wise, not only wise, compassionate. These two aspects are very important. So these are the kinds of people that we respect, so we do not want them to scold us or tell us we are wrong, especially when they are right in saying so. So regard for the world means regard for the wise people in the world. Then you have another kind of wise person. They may not be Buddhists, but they're good people. They're kind people. There are many such people outside of Buddhism too. And for all you know, they're quite sympathetic to Buddhism also. And these are the kinds of people also we respect. Because it is good to have such people around. The more such people around, the more stable societies, the more wholesome societies, the more safe and productive the society is. And thirdly, when we talk about the world, we talk about the law, about customs, traditions that are good. We have to respect those customs and traditions also. And you find that Buddhist teachers, wherever they go, no matter what tradition they follow, somehow they also respect the local traditions. So if you go to a Thai temple in Bukit Merah, you see there's a big shrine for Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is the overarching Chinese deity. Of course, Buddhist. So the temples, they accept even Kuan Yin, right? Of course, they need support, right? And a lot of support comes from the Chinese. The Chinese are very generous. So Kuan Yin also brings blessing to the temple. So basically, respecting the world means also respecting the law, not breaking the law. In fact, there is one rule in the Vinaya, where the Buddha simply states, monks shall obey kings. Monks shall obey kings. Of course, this is the context of Buddha's time. If you update this rule, today we will rephrase it as monks shall obey the law. Monks shall obey the law. So this is very interesting. There is no antagonism or tension between church and state in Buddhism in this sense, in Buddha's time. There's always this sense of harmony. And if the Buddha ever intervened in worldly affairs, like for example, the Sakyas and the Kolyas living on opposite banks of each other, they can go to war over the dwindling waters of the river. So the Buddha goes there, he just stands by himself. No violent action. No action like you see some of the monks today. No burning of anyone, like in Tibet or Vietnam. The Buddha just stood there. The Buddha's presence was enough to prevent this King Viduddhaba from attacking the Sakyas. Sorry, there's another story. These two tribes from fighting each other. Okay, the Buddha asked these two clans or two tribes, the Sakyas and Kolyas, which is of greater value to you, blood or water? And of course the Buddha says, blood is more of greater value, Venerable Sir. Then the Buddha said, why do you fight? You should not fight, because if you kill each other, you can never replace blood, but water, you can always get it again. So in that way, he prevented the fight. Then later on, this young haughty prince, Viduddhaba, he wanted to take his revenge on the Sakyas, who cheated his father by giving a low-caste woman to marry King Pasenadi. So the son actually is a half-caste. So he vowed that when he becomes king, he's going to destroy the Sakyas. And when he became king, he actually tried to massacre the Sakyas. The Buddha had heard of this, so he appeared. The Buddha went to the battlefield, and Viduddhaba did not attack the Sakyas on 3 occasions. So then the Buddha, just by his presence, prevented the fight. Now this is the way monks should behave today, but sadly the monks are listening to the world. The monks have taken the world as priority, not the Dharma. If the monks in the different countries of the world, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, elsewhere, Tibet, China, if they take the Dharma as priority, they will not go into violent demonstration. They will still keep the dignity of the robes. They may just sit there quietly or maybe make a peaceful statement over what should or should not be done. They should not go into the streets and then get arrested. Then they are treated just like anyone else. So what is the difference? It's only the robe that they're wearing. Oh, but this is a big issue. I know there are actually Buddhists, some Buddhists who actually say, well, the monks have to speak up for themselves. And sometimes these monks themselves, you listen to them, you really wonder whether they should do it or not, because I've lived in Thailand for 5 years and I know many of the monks are very poor. And they can feel when there is discrimination of the poor, they feel very angry and they want to do something about it, even as monks, especially as young monks. So it can be very difficult, this human situation. That is why Dharma training is very important. We use our spirituality to change things. Or we have to choose. You want to do it as a layman or as a monk. So these are the priorities, 3 priorities you have to decide. Okay? I feel that if you are a monk, you have to preserve the dignity of a monk. Because if a monk joins the crowd in demonstration, especially a violent crowd, he will be treated just like any other member of that violent crowd. So then you have a problem. So he's no more treated as a monk, or if more and more monks keep doing that, then you have a big issue on the meaning and purpose of the robes. So these are things to seriously think about. So this, when we take the world as our priority, as supreme, we have to decide, how are we doing it? Are we doing it as a person of the world, as a lay person, or as a monk? Because as a monk, you have taken a vow to take a spiritual path, the path of renunciation, the path of non-violence. You must always remember that. And then the third one is Dharma-priority, Dharma-priority. Of course, this is the highest, most important one. Here it means to take the Dharma first, to reflect our status as a renunciant, as a monastic, or as a lay practitioner, lay follower like you and I. So in other words, we must ask ourselves, now that I have declared myself a Buddhist, or I have accepted my dedication or even attraction to Buddhism, how should I behave? In other words, there is a meaning and purpose in our action as Buddhists. Of course, all these good things may not happen at once or suddenly. In Buddhism, we talk of the gradual way. So the vow, in other words, the aspiration, in other words, help us gradually to strengthen ourselves bit by bit to become better and better practitioners of the Dharma. Gradual way. Yeah? But we still take the Dharma as the highest aspiration in our life. If we do that, you can guarantee you'll be happy. Because the Buddha himself takes the Dharma as above himself. Soon after the Buddha's awakening, as the Gārava Sutta tells us, he looks around and says, now that I'm enlightened, I want to pay my respects to a teacher who is better than me. He couldn't find anyone better than the Buddha. But he still felt it's not right. Who shall I show my respect to? So you can see here the enlightened one, the Buddha himself. It so humbly thinks, to whom shall I bow down? He found no one. Then he says, okay, in that case I shall bow to the Dharma. The Dharma shall be above me. So the Buddha places the Dharma first, Dhamm'ādhipateyya. Now because the Buddha did that, his teaching survived to this day, and if you want that kind of teaching that he gave us, it's still there. There are many other forms of Buddhism. Teacher-centered, guru-centered, person-centered, doctrine-centered, and so on. But here you have the Buddha, who teaches a truth-centered, reality-centered teaching. So, if the Buddha places the Dharma above himself, shouldn't we too do that? Right? Gārava Sutta. What does that mean? That means we tell ourselves, okay, here I am studying the Sutta, studying the Dharma. What is it for? Not to argue other people and prove them wrong. Of course, occasionally I have to write something simple, weekly reflections, telling people, be strong, don't get into trouble, right? Don't get lost in all these worldly views. Try to connect with some other wonderful learning that are available today. And all the time pointing back to the Dharma, pointing back to the Dharma. This is what the reflections try to do. There are two kinds of reflections that I write every week. One is called Simple Joys and Inspiration. And this is to simply help the reader to be happy. Reading is 1 or 2 pages of reflection to make them feel really happy. And we often get feedback, people read that and thank us for it. Then the other one is what we call revisioning Buddhism. Looking at Buddhism again. Asking ourselves, what do I really need to do as a Buddhist? This one is a thinking reflection, not always easy. Some people are not happy when they read this. They're very upset because it challenges their opinions or views. If I were to write something that doesn't seem to challenge anyone, I might as well not write because there's so many other people doing that, pleasing other people. I mean, I don't write, nobody writes to offend others, although a few may, but if you are teaching Dharma, you wouldn't do that. But sometimes you write the nicest thing, people are offended by it for various reasons. What they don't realize is that moment is very crucial, important to them, because something has touched a raw nerve in them. So if only they allow some humility in their lives, that is where they can become strong. One reason this happened is because today, Buddhism, Buddhist books, Buddhist information is so easily available. You just look at the range of books and booklets available now. Even some of the most authoritative, comprehensive books on Buddhism today are available free of charge, if you care to look, especially in Asia. 40 years ago, in my time, it's so difficult to get all these books. And we treasure an English-speaking monk who comes along and we really listen. Now you have a choice, you're spot for choice. So people tend to sometimes water down something that can help them. So they don't see this as something that can help them, but rather they kind of get upset with it when someone tells them something is wrong. That is why the Buddha remains silent on some occasions. I'm working on volume 44 now. This is the first time I have reversed my policy. Usually I will do the essays first. But this time, I do all the suttas first. Do the essay last. Because the essay is most difficult, very long. So the last thing is the essay I'm doing now. And the title is The Buddha's Silence. Because it's so difficult, I say, what can I write about the Buddha's silence? This is an empty page. So I put it last. Now I told myself, just think of the other suttas first. And now I finished the sutta, I got to face the music. I have to write this essay. Well, I have begun preparing the notes already. One interesting thing I learned through this preliminary research and reading is that the Buddha remains silent, not just because the Dharma is deep or the views expressed are wrong. It's because of the minds of the questioner. Because they are not ready for any kind of answer. You say yes, they're not happy. You say no, also they're not happy. So the Buddha maintains silence. This is found in the Vacchagotta Sutta, where the Buddha, when this Vacchagotta asked the Buddha, is there a soul? Buddha didn't answer. Is there no soul then? Buddha also didn't answer. This is one rare sutta when the Buddha was silent. And then Vacchagotta goes away. It's amazing. I mean, nobody will do it today. No teacher in his right mind, you go to him and ask a question, he'll be silent. It's regarded as rude in our times. But in the Buddha's time, it's different. The teacher is allowed to be silent. So Vacchagotta goes away for that occasion. Of course, the story doesn't end there. Because the story ends there, we don't know what's going on. You see? So we are a privileged audience. We today are a privileged audience because of the suttas. Ananda is there. Ananda becomes our representative. He asked the Buddha, why did you remain silent when Vacchagotta asked you, is there a soul? And then he asked, is there no soul? Then you're also silent. So here you have a very good hint of the Buddha's silence. The Buddha replies and says, Vacchagotta, if I were to say there is a soul, obviously Vacchagotta probably be happy, but I'm going against my own teaching. But then I can't say this because it's against the principles of our teaching. Then it says, is there no soul then? If I say, yes, there's no soul, this poor man will be shocked because he has this idea there's a soul. He's so used to the idea there's a soul. It's like today, you tell this God believer, you're going to tell the Pope there's no God, he won't be very happy. He'll be troubled. Because they're so stuck in this idea. So at that moment, Vacchagotta, in a sense, is dependent on the idea of the soul. So the Buddha is saving him the trouble of suffering all that emotional turmoil by not answering. Not at that moment anyway, because later on Vacchagotta will come again, in the end he gets enlightened. So again, the Buddha's silence here, in other words, instead of preventing the student from getting into any kind of trouble or creating that karma, maybe he might get upset. For example, there was another sutta, which was translated recently. The name just slipped my mind. It could be the Ujjaya Sutta. this person doesn't ask a question, and then the Buddha keeps quiet. Or he asks all the 10 questions, Is the world permanent? Is the universe finite, infinite, and so on. The Buddha says, no, I don't have, these are undeclared, I have nothing to say about this. All the 10 questions, the Buddha has nothing to say. So this man, this wanderer, thought, why doesn't the Buddha answer? Why don't you answer all these questions? And then the Buddha remained silent. Ananda was there again. Then Ananda quickly intervenes because it's almost like he's reading the mind of this wanderer, and he thinks, he says, oh dear, this wanderer now may start thinking, why did the Buddha give any answer? Is it because he's ignorant of all, cannot answer? He's not wise, stupid in fact? If he thinks like that, it will be very bad karma for him. He has this negative attitude to the Buddha. So Ananda at once intervenes. So here you see the Buddha is silent, Ananda intervenes and explains. He says, oh, you asked the Buddha the same question which the Buddha has already answered you. And he didn't say the question was wrongly put, but indirectly he's saying the question was wrongly put. So this wanderer kind of accepts that provisional answer and he goes away, learning nothing new, except he didn't get angry with the Buddha. But he came again later on, asked the Buddha about objects of sense pleasures, the cause of sense pleasures. And then the third sutta that we have about him records that he's already a monk, he becomes enlightened. So here you see the Buddha places Dharma first, but sometimes he is silent because he doesn't want to offend anyone. So this is where, even though we place Dharma first, sometimes when we teach the Dharma, we have to be skillful in our approach. So those a bit of elaboration on the three kinds of priorities. Let us look at the suttas now. The Sutta, Ādhipateyya Sutta A3.40. This is from SD 27.3, volume 27. Sutta 3 is a special study for this new year. Page, is it 44, your page? 43. Yeah? Bhikshus, there are these three priorities, or if you like, supremacies. Once you see a square bracket, it means you can choose either translation. What are the three? Self-priority, or the supremacy of self, att'ādhipateyya. World priority, or supremacy for the world, lok'ādhipateyya. And Dharma priority, supremacy of the Dharma, dhamm'ādhipateyya. And what is self-priority? Here, bhikshus, a monk having gone into the forest or to the foot of a tree or to an empty abode reflects thus: it is not for the sake of robes that I have gone forth from the home life into homelessness, nor is it for the sake of alms food, nor is it for the sake of lodgings, nor for the sake of this or that existence that I have gone forth from the home life into homelessness. Okay, so this is the first attitude that a monk must have. I did not become a monk for worldly gain. This is hard to say for today, because today you find being a monk is also a profession. If there's a form, this official form, you say, what's your job? So obviously a monk must say monk. I think it would be more right for the monk to say teacher rather than monk, because monk is not a job. It's a way of life. And some monks actually, some people actually become monks just to earn a living. So this, I would say this is more common than for awakening. So these are the realities we have to face. So here the Buddha is reminding us, this is what being a monk is about. So you can imagine how difficult it is today for me to translate suttas, promote suttas. That is why you find generally monks of the world, when we say monks of the world, we mean most of the monks, the mainstream monks, you'll find that they don't like my translations because it's too revealing. It's not good for business because this is what the suttas say. The less the people know about sutta, the better. But the forest monks, the practicing monks, they just love the suttas. And there is a group of people all over the world, in different countries. They are so happy with this sutta translation series because it's the most comprehensive translation you can find anywhere. Because I collect all the available information from traditional to modern, including my own interpretation, but all that is connected with the sutta. So they're so happy, everything is there. They can just sit at home, and some of these places are very cold. In Canada, in the US, and there are students there are special, you might say, fans of the Sutta Discovery series. So you write to me and say, now my temperature is -3, Another one will say another thing, very cold, but I'm now snugly in my warm room studying the suttas. And I'm very happy with this. So these are the kind of people I work the suttas for. We can't make everybody happy. But my desire, even as a young person, when I turn to Buddhism, is to know the Dharma. So for many decades, I went around to different teachers, and I find I can't get all the answers. Some of them get annoyed, some of them push me around like a hot potato. But in the end, I told myself, it's all there in the suttas. Let me give you a very interesting example of this, which makes me so joyful. I've been going around asking one very difficult question, and no monk, even the best that I met, couldn't answer this question. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything like that, it's a difficult question. The question is this: why did the Buddha, when he was passing away, he went through all the 9 progressive abodes, 4 jhanas, 4 formless realms, and then what's called cessation. And then he comes down again, and then goes into the form jhanas and passes away in the form jhana. No one knows this answer. The sutras don't mention it, the commentaries don't mention this. But it's a very interesting question. For many years, I did not know the answer. And the answer came to me recently. Can you imagine? When I'm 64, and only the answer came after all the years of studying the suttas. Of course, I'm not sure whether I'm right or not, but I think it's a very likely answer. The answer is this: the Buddha has a physical body. It is a physical body that will pass away. So if it goes into the formless realm and it goes up to the cessation level of sensation, but these levels are all formless. So, but he has a body. So he won't be able to pass away on those levels. He has to come back to the form level where the body is still there, and then he passes away because he has a physical body. The answer basically goes around this kind of idea. The details are given in the latest version of the Dharma-priority Sutta. If you're interested, you can email to me, I'll send you the whole Sutta.
So the question is, if he chooses to stay on, you mean he will not pass away?
He could extend his lifespan a bit more according to the way he spoke about the meaning of the kalpa. That means his natural human life, maybe 120 years, or if we believe the traditions, Ananda live up to 160 years. So I suppose it's possible for the Buddha, if he wants, he could live that long. Yeah. But I wouldn't interpret it other way as one kalpa meaning a whole life cycle. Wow, that means the Buddha could still live up to today, right to the end of the universe, which is a bit difficult to accept. And no one that we know has ever lived that long, or even half that long. So I think sometimes we must not let our imagination and faith run too one. So I think kappa or kalpa is best translated here as a human lifespan, natural lifespan of a human. So what the Buddha is saying, you could pass away now, or you could still finish off the rest of this natural human lifespan. That's another interesting problem which the Dharma-priority Sutta translation also discusses. Okay?
What about the one that they say that Because they didn't ask him to stay.
Oh yes, Ananda.
Therefore he
Yeah, this is another curiosity. The sutta, right? I have a feeling this one is more of the elder monks blaming Ananda rather than anything to do with the Buddha. Because it is said that I think 16 times the Buddha hinted to Ananda, would you like me to stay on longer than my lifespan, longer than the time that I will pass away, another beyond 80 years old. Mara always appeared frightened and distracted Ananda. So Ananda didn't hear the question. Can you imagine that? And 16 times. So finally, the last time, when the Buddha said this, Ananda was silent. Mara appeared and frightened him. And then suddenly he realized, oops, yeah, Buddha asked me a question, This last time he realized it, then he asked him, oh Lord, please stay on, But then the Buddha said, Ayoji, renounce my lifespan. In other words, he already made a decision not to continue, finish off his life. Okay, here you can bring up another problem. Did the Buddha kill himself? Very tricky, right? So this question also is discussed in the Ādhipateyya Sutta. Did the Buddha kill himself? Because the Jains, they have a very interesting practice, It's regarded as very noble. The saints, they will starve themselves, they won't eat, and they will die as a result. And this is regarded as a sacred way of passing away, and they are regarded as saints if they do that. Of course, in Buddhism, we don't really promote that. But the question is, did the Buddha do that? So, of course, as Buddhists we say he didn't do that because it's just a matter of his natural lifespan is 80 years old. But he just decided not to extend his life. He could, but he did not do that. This is one of the stories that either you accept or you reject. Don't worry too much about it so that it won't affect your meditation. Alright, let's continue with the sutta now. Further down, but indeed, I am pierced or beset by birth, decay, and death, by sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, despair, pierced by suffering, overcome with suffering. Surely the end of this whole mass of suffering might be known. So, the purpose of becoming a monk, becoming a Buddhist, is to know suffering and to end it. This is the shorter version of the Four Noble Truths. The aim of a Buddhist is to fully understand what is suffering and to end it. Once you understand it, you can end it. This is the short version of the Four Noble Truths. The first two truths are in the first statement, last two truths are in the second statement. Now, if I were to seek the kinds of sense pleasures I have abandoned, just make a note there, please. I have abandoned through going forth from home into homelessness, or indeed were to seek a worse kind, worse sensual pleasures, more worldly in other words, that would not be proper for me. So this is a reflection, and now I'm a monk, I should not think like a layman anymore. There you are. Here's another point. So those monks who go on demonstrations, join the violent crowds, they forget they are monks. And they say, oh no, my family is more important. In that case, they should disrobe. So here, this monk says, I should not think like a layman, I should not enjoy sensual pleasures. So he reflects, effort shall be roused by me. I will not be lax, but be one with mindfulness, established, unconfused, my body stilled, unruffled, and the mind focused, unified. Body still, unruffled, keeping the precepts, overcoming the mental hindrances, and then the mind focused, unified, attaining jhanas. In other words, the monk gives up the world. The world here, there are two kinds. Number one is the family. He no more attaches himself, he's no more dependent on the biological family. Number two, he renounces the real world, that is the five senses. Five senses. The five senses is our real world, so that he gets into jhana. And then from there he can overcome craving and so on. Giving the highest priority to the self Notice here, it's the monk who's practicing. He gives priority to the self. He abandons the unwholesome, cultivates the wholesome, abandons the blameworthy, cultivates the blameless, looks after his own purity. So here you are. As a practitioner, as a layperson, same thing. We put ourselves first by telling ourselves, I must try my best to do the precepts well. I must try my best to do some meditation. I must try my best to gain wisdom through studying the suttas and Dharma. That is for yourself. This is called self-priority. Okay? Any question on self-priority? Okay, second one. And what is world priority? Lok'ādhipateyya. Here, bhikshus, a monk having gone into the forest or to the foot of a tree or to an empty abode, reflects thus. Same reflection. It is not for the sake of robes, alms, food, lodging that are gone forth from home into homelessness. It is not for the sake of this or that existence I have gone forth from the home life into homelessness. This last one I didn't mention earlier. It's not for better rebirth. It's not for better rebirth. Not for worldly pleasures, not for better rebirth also. In other words, to be awakened in this life itself. There you are. When I do make such statements, remember I'm only quoting the sutta. I try my best never to give a personal opinion about such things because they won't be useful. So I'm just saying this is what I understand the suttas. Surely the end of this whole mass of suffering might be known, right? So overcome suffering, awaken in this life. Now if I, having thus gone forth, were to have sensual pleasures and to have thought of ill will or to have thoughts of violence, great indeed is this society in the world. Surely in this great society there are recluses and Brahmins with psychic powers, with a divine eye, with the power to read the minds of others. Even from afar they can see me. Though close by they may be invisible, and they know my mind too. They would know me thus. Look, sirs, at this son of family. Look at this person. Gone forth from the home lives into homelessness, but he dwells drenched in bad, unwholesome states. There are devas too, with psychic powers, with a divine eye, with the power to read the minds of others. Even from afar, they can see me, though close by, they may be invisible, and they know my mind too. They too would know me thus. Looks as the son of family, gone forth from home into homelessness, but he dwells drenched in bad, unwholesome states. So he reflects thus. Effort shall be made by means. I will not be lax, but be one with mindfulness established, unconfused, my body stilled, unruffled, the mind focused, unified. It is a very interesting passage here. So this monk, now he puts the world as the priority. So he says, now that I have become a monk, my purpose should not be to gain worldly pleasures or even better rebirth beyond the human, but to awaken in this life, to know what is suffering and ending suffering. And definitely I should not harbor any sensual thoughts, thoughts of ill will or non-violence. This is wrong thought, no? Wrong thought, opposite of right thoughts. Why? Because the world will know. Now here, interestingly, according to teaching, there are two kinds of world. You have the human world. There are people who are wise. They will know that I'm not doing the right thing. They will know. In the first one, I know myself. The second one, the world will know. There are good people, there are wise people, they will know. And it's not good for me. Shameful, in fact. And there are also devas, other beings that will know this. Higher beings. So I better make my effort to practice, keep the precepts, meditate, and gain awakening. Giving the highest priority to the world, he abandons the unwholesome, cultivates the wholesome, abandons the blameworthy, cultivates the blameless, and looks after his own purity. This is called the world priority. Okay, any questions in the second one? Okay, now the third and last priority. And what is Dharma-priority, dhamm'ādhipateyya? Here bhikshus among having gone into a forest or to the foot of a tree or to an empty abode reflects thus. It is not for the sake of robes that I have gone from the home into homeless life, not for the sake of alms food, nor for the sake of lodging, nor for the sake of this or that state of existence that I have gone forth from the home life into homelessness. So here again, I do not alms to gain worldly pleasure or to have better rebirth. Indeed, there is so much suffering around, and I'm also suffering. So, my purpose should be to understand what is suffering and the ending of suffering. And this also applies to us as lay practitioners. Now something different starts. Well taught is the true teaching of the Blessed One, Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. Visible here and now, immediate or having nothing to do with time, inviting one to come and see, accessible or leading up to the goal of Nirvana, that is, to be personally known by the wise. So in other words, the Dharma is available. You just go online. The suttas are there, the translations are there. You come to various temples, there are suttas being taught. And there are free books available. There are all kinds of media available for the Dharma today. So you can go to teachers also. So the Dharma is so accessible today. And not only that, you have the early teachings still available. Now there are fellow brahmacharis, colleagues in the holy life, who dwell knowing and seeing. Now if I, having thus gone forth in this Dharma that is well proclaimed, were to dwell lazily and heedlessly, it would not be proper for me. Right? So he says, there are others like me, there are other monks also who are practicing. Right? So if I live a bad life, then they also will be discouraged. Or they may ostracize me, and so on. So he reflects, effort shall be roused by me. I will not be laxed, but be one with mindfulness established, unconfused, my body still, unruffled, the mind focused, unified. Giving the highest priority to the Dharma, he abandons the unwholesome, cultivates the wholesome, abandons the blameworthy, cultivates the blameless, and looks after his own purity. This is called the Dharma-priority. So in this third case, the monk places the Dharma first. The teaching is available, so I should practice it. There's no excuse for not practicing it. Any questions on this part? And then you have the closing section, which are poems. It's a verse. Some people say these verses are actually older than the text, or do not know. These verses are very beautiful. Natti loke raho nam papa kamang pakubato atta te purisa janati satchang wa yadiwa musa. There is in the world no secret, or there is no secret in the world, of one who does a bad deed. You yourself, O man, know what is true or what is false. Notice what's the meaning of this. You cannot hide something bad in the world. There's no way of hiding. People will know. Why? We ourselves know if we've done a bad action. Right? You yourself, O man, know what is true or false. In other words, what the Buddha is saying, we are capable of, as humans, we know right and wrong, true and false. We are capable of wisdom. This is a very important teaching in Buddhism. Other religions tell you, man's wisdom is foolishness in the eyes of God. But here Buddha says, you are wise enough to think for yourself. and I tell you, you are wise enough to think for yourself, which of this statement is more workable? I mean, if all our best learning is foolishness, then we can just sit back and say, well, what to do? I'm just a stupid guy, let me just wait for an angel to come and save me. We don't make any effort, isn't it? But here what the Buddha is saying, you can make the effort. Kalayanang wattabo sakhi, attanang atimanyasi, yo santang atani papang atanang pariguhasi. Alas, sir, you, the witness, look down upon your own self. How can you hide that bad that there is in the self from the self? How can you pretend there's no evil, there's no bad thing? You can love other people, but you can't love yourself. Quite strong words, you might say, the Buddha said, but very true. Now, all these teachings are very useful in counseling, because sometimes people, because they do this, they're hiding this truth. They know it, although other people do not know it, and they're very trying. So in counseling, we try to gently make them see this, accept this, then it's called catharsis. They free themselves from this burden of secrecy. Okay? Pasanti deva cha tathagata cha lokasming balang visamang charantam att'ādhipako sakochare lok'ādhipateyya nipako cha jayi. The Devas and the Tathagatas, Buddhas thus come, see the fool living falsely in the world. The Buddha who lives with self as supreme, or the one who lives with self as supreme, and the one for whom the world is supreme should be wise and engaged in meditation. That is very interesting. Whatever we do, we think no one knows. Sutta says the Devas know, and the Buddhas will know. Why? Because in the future, when you meet the Buddha, you look at you and say, aha, see, this is what you've done long, long ago. That's why you're caught up with this situation now. So it's quite embarrassing. So this is a kind of early warning system, telling us, why don't you be a good person right now? Why don't you make your aspiration to be a stream winning now? See? Dhamm'ādhipateyya anu dhammachari nahiyati satcha parakamo muni pasaiha marang abhibhuya antakam yocha pusi jatikayam padanava so tadiso loka vidu sumedo sabbesu dhammesu attammayo muni ti. For whom the Dharma is supreme. Notice here, these are the first two priorities already mentioned, this is the third priority. For whom the Dharma is supreme, keeping to the Dharma, let him not give up being a sage, striving for the truth. Don't give up your effort to learn the Dharma. Don't give up your effort to come and study the suttas. No, we come here only once every fortnight. Right? And some other place once every month only. So this is our chance to learn the Dharma. And even if you miss this, you can go online and you can watch this video recording. So there's a lot of chances for us to study the Dharma. Don't give up the opportunity. Having strived and conquered Mara, the end maker that means end people's lives and efforts to do good. That striver who has touched the end of birth, such a one is wise, knower of worlds. Okay. So when we meditate or we awaken, it is Mara who is defeated. This is a way of saying that we have overcome bad things in our lives. We are wise, meaning we have realized freedom for ourselves. We are knower of worlds. There you are, lok'ādhipateyya. We understand the nature of the senses with which we form our own world. A silent sage, unshaped by anything in any way. And maker, one simple meaning is It ends the good things you are doing. It prevents you from progressing in your meditation. Ends all the good things, end maker. Mara also ends our life, this life, so that we are born in lower states, or we are born in this world, and caught up with the world, so that we are always in Mara's realm, under Mara's power. When you meditate, you let go of the five senses, meaning you let go of the world. Mara is blinded. Mara is the ruler of the world, all that exists, including the gods. So if you close your eyes and meditate and you let go of the five senses, you let go of the world. You go beyond power of Mara. This is a very powerful way of talking how the senses imprison us, in other words. So as end maker, he makes an end of our opportunities to do good. The silent sage, Muni, M-U-N-I, is a very old term. In fact, one of the earliest words used to describe the Buddha is Muni, silent sage, the Sakya Muni, sage of the Sakya. Silent meaning, in those early days, it doesn't say much, silent. But the real meaning is that his mind is free from views, no more mental chatter. Because when we have views, there's a lot of mental chatter. So his mind is totally silent, no more troubled by views. So it's silent within, silent without. He only talks Dharma when invited, when necessary. Unshaped by anything in any way. Attamayo. Attamayo is a very difficult word to translate. I wrote a very long essay on just this one word, Attamaya. The title is Attamayata. A meaning not, and then tam or tam meaning that, and then yata. Tam means that, deadness. So this translates as not deadness. It's quite tricky. It's one of those meditation language. No? It's a written, very interesting term. In fact, I think two reflections ago, right? Latest one. Oh, okay. Making nothing of it, yeah? The latest reflection sent to you is called Making Nothing of It. That is talking about this also, Attamayata. In fact, this reflection, it reached Peru, you know, and this person, Spanish guy, young man in Peru, was so happy with this reflection, he asked permission to translate it into Spanish. So I have a Spanish version of it available in case you want to read it. You can read Spanish of this latest reflection on the Attamayata. Sabbesu dhammesu attamayo. Not that, not made that by anything. So this is the best I can translate, unshaped by anything in any way. Another way of translating this is, he is in no way influenced or formed by the thoughts that arise in his mind, the views that arise in his mind. So some of these things are quite tricky. That is why studies like this cannot replace self-study of the suttas by yourself. Unless, of course, you are yourself an advanced practitioner or meditator. In other words, sutta studies like this sometimes gives us the opportunity to go deeper where we miss writing it. Sometimes when I'm teaching, these ideas just arise like that to put everything in perspective. So this is the value of sutta study. And we have come to the end of this sutta for today. Any questions?
2.2 Hiri ottappa.
Oh yes, hiri ottappa.
Page 39.
Right, this hiri ottappa, moral shame, moral fear, they are, as a set, they are called the two bright states that protect the world. The two bright states that protect the world. Bright here meaning good, joyful. They are called world protectors. Why? There's something mentioned there. What was it? 2.2, yeah? From the Hiri Ottappa Sutta, A 2.9. Bhikshus, there are two bright states that protect the world. What are the two? Moral shame and moral fear. Bhikshus, if these two bright states were not to protect the world, then there would be no mothers or mother sisters, nor uncles' wives, nor teachers' wives, nor gurus' wives. Instead, the world would come to confusion, such as there is amongst goats and sheep and fowl and pigs, and goats and jackals. But bhikshus, since these two bright states do protect the world, therefore they are seen mothers, mother sisters, uncles' wives, teachers' wives, gurus' wives. This is a statement on the supremacy of the family, if you like, on the why society, how society can become wholesome. If there were no marriage, or at least acknowledgement of partnership in life, you will not be able to see human relationship. In other words, the Buddha is interestingly pro-family. You either join the monastic family or biological family. That way, the world is in order. So it's not so much an economic thing, it's more to maintain some kind of order in society, and from order you get goodness, and from goodness you have a chance to renounce the world. And when you have a chance to renounce the world, you can get enlightened. So the Buddha sees things in a big way. So what is this hiri ottappa, moral shame, moral fear? Moral shame, we feel, we have the idea, oh, I should not do this because this is shameful, what will people say of me, right? So we relate to others, we see an older woman, we treat as a mother, a woman around the same age, we treat as a sister, and someone younger as a daughter. There is a kind of social distance. Moral fear is the fear of karmic repercussions, karmic consequences. I should not do this because karma will act on me, all right? So this is where you find the three priorities also connected with these two bright states, hiri ottappa. For example, Buddha Ghosha, he says, further down, in the Atthasalini, for example, he says that moral shame arises on account of self-priority. So in other words, if you put yourself first, then you should have moral shame. You ask yourself, I should not do this, it will bring me shame, right? The negative aspect of self-priority would be self-pride, which is not good, okay? Selfishness and so on. The good aspect is you care for yourself, that you tell yourself, I better be on my best behavior, I better be good. And moral shame, moral fear is what they call underlies the second priority, the world. Right? So I better don't do this because if I hurt other people, there are karmic consequences. So they're connected in that way. And then the third one, you have both. Now, although Buddha Ghosha puts in, compare or contrast the two sets of teachings with in this way, actually, when I reflect on this, I suppose you can say moral shame and moral fear, both of them can apply to all the three priorities. For example, in the case of self priority, you can take it as having as underlying what you call moral fear, because you say, well, I better not do this because I will bear the karmic consequences. And then in the case of a world priority of taking the world as priority, you can have moral shame. What would the world say of me? Right? So either way, you can actually look at them from both the bright states. And in the case of the Dharma, definitely both hiri ottappa are applied. Because if you are a monk or you are a meditator, you need to practice the precepts. And in fact, hiri ottappa, moral shame, moral fear, are often the synonym for moral virtue also. Okay? Any other question?
Confucius
How you translate that? 历练词。
不值得礼义廉耻。
哦，廉耻。
relation
礼，你是礼？哦。
义是那个什么义气的义啊，廉是区别的廉。
You're talking about hierarchy, is it? We should respect parents respect those above.
And also they talk about shame also.
Yeah. Confucius lived around the same time as the Buddha, so I don't think he was influenced by the Buddha. But later Confucianism, especially Neo-Confucianism, was definitely influenced by the Buddha. Anyway, Confucianism is a special kind of ideology. It's more of a state ideology. It's a worldly ideology, so you don't bother about future lives or after death. The idea is how to maintain order so that the state is successful and those in power remain in power. So one way is to respect hierarchy. Yeah, I think the drift is very different. The emphasis is very different. In the case of Confucius, he was thinking of how to maintain order and power so that the kingdom or the empire is safe. The Buddha is thinking more broadly. How can the world be orderly? Whereas Confucianism is for a particular place, you see? So that's the big difference. Buddhism is universal, whereas Confucianism is culture-based or even race-based, if you like. Yes?
Two things to ask you. The first thing is that in this sutta we have this self, and then we've got the world, and we've got the Dharma, maybe that order. But which priority applies depends on the person.
Oh, yes.
Like monks maybe Dharma first.
Yeah, but in this sutta, I notice, even in the case of the monk, it is self, world, Dharma.
Also self.
Yeah. I think that's the general sequence for everybody. Anyone would normally think of themselves first, and then the world and Dharma. So that's a normal sequence. But of course, like you say, in the case of a monk, probably he would put Dharma first. I mean, he's already kind of higher up in his training. Yeah.
Okay, the second thing I want to ask you is this thing about Mara. Very, very often we hear statements like Mara appear to disturb you, to obstruct you, to distract you.
Yeah.
Mara is a mental thing, isn't it? It's not a physical force.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a product of your mind.
Right.
Would I be right to say?
No, yes, you definitely like to say that.
Because in Christianity, we got Satan, the devil, and they always tell you Satan will do this to you.
Yeah, this is
Satan in Christianity is a physical thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you find a lot of problems arise from there. Once you believe the devil is real, then you have a lot of other issues. And this is one of those very difficult things in religious studies. I'm not saying something easy. I've written a paper on this, but I know a lot of traditional Buddhists out there, they're not happy about it, because to them, like the Christians, they believe Mara is real, like you and I are real. Kuan Yin is real, like you and I are real. And heaven and hell are there, as a place. In fact, there are actually stories in some of these traditional countries like Myanmar and so on. They actually tell you hell is underground. But we know very well now you can dig deep inside, there's no hell, Of course, you have a problem there, We are talking about another dimension. But that's another way of explaining it. Yes, it could be down there, but you can't see it. It's like you see all those fairy tales, you go to the cave and then something happens, A normal person won't see it, you see? Right? It's like a time warp. Sometimes you see those Star Trek, Stargate, you see that kind of story, right? Where someone goes to another dimension. That's possible. But again, there's no way of proving this or disproving it. So this is the problem, you see? You can neither prove nor disprove it. Now in that case, what do we do? Now, I've written a paper on this, a reflection on this. So essentially this is what I think. In the book of Truths, Dukkha-Nipata, the Buddha says that there are two levels of teaching. Remember? One is the direct teaching. You look at it, the Dharma, the Buddha used the words impermanence, consciousness, and so on. Direct. The other one is indirect. The meaning must be drawn up, neya. So whenever the Buddha uses names of people, this being, that being, demons, devas, they're meant to be drawn up. From there you have a very strong hint. All these stories, you must ask yourself, what does it mean? So this is where it's okay. We don't know whether they exist or not. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what is the Buddha trying to say here? What does the story tell us? Yeah, this is another interesting discovery I made recently. Late last year. One of the suttas I really dread to teach is about health. The Habavila kind of thing, really graphic. Devadutta Sutta, Balapandita Sutta. I tell you, I used to fear to teach those things. It's gruesome, all those killings, and also we don't know they're real or not. And some young modern people will never believe in these things. So I told myself, how do I deal with this? Then that day I discovered, it came to me, why did the Buddha teach these things? He's trying to talk about suffering of those who are evil. Now how do you describe pain, suffering? The best way is to tell them about something they're already familiar with. All those descriptions of the hells, the kind of tortures that are done there, they were all done by the ancient kings. They were actual torture methods, terrible, horrible methods used by the kings. And the Buddha knew them very well. So he listed all those things systematically. So what the Buddha had done was he has used the stories of the tortures of the king, saying this is what hell is like, this is the pain. I mean, if you want an earthly idiom, that this is the closest you can get the idea of suffering. So once you understand that, that is not too difficult to accept the teachings of the hells. So we don't actually go to hell. Rather, hell comes to us. Big difference, you know. What does it mean? Hell comes to us. You don't have to go to hell. Right here. I mean, if you are the karma riper, suddenly all this pain and suffering and torture can come to us. You don't have to actually see those visible things going on, but it's a mental state. And this Devadatta Sutta is a very interesting, almost humorous statement. You know, King Yama sits in judgment, but he doesn't punish any of those hell beings. He's there like an interviewer. He says, have you not seen this? A baby just born, an old man, a sick man, a dead man. Don't you know life is impermanent and you should be doing good things? And all these hell beings say, no, we don't know, we are Hitlers. You know? And finally, it appears as if Yama himself got really bored and tired with his work. He aspired to be a human being in the Buddha's time, so he can become a monk and get out of samsara. Like, even in the hell stories, you see there is this bright light that the Buddha gives us. That it's an impermanent state, impermanent, and even the king of hell himself wants to get out of that state and become awakened. Because if you live in hell, you are a hell being effectively, right? So he wants to get out of it. So you can see what is the Buddha doing here. He's using all these stories to tell us these are mind-made states. Ask yourself, what's the meaning of this? The pain is real. The pain is real. But the places are cultural. Yeah. Alright, any other question?
So this is self-worth Dharma applies to us?
Yes, it applies to everybody. Yeah, it can apply to everyone. So, for example, for ourselves, we say, number one, what am I getting from this retreat? Am I learning something? Right? So you ask, what do I benefit from this? You ask about yourself first. Then the next thing you ask is, okay, all these things I do, am I helping other people also or not? Am I helping other people to know there is Sutta study here, that they can come and learn Buddhism and don't suffer blindly? And then finally, am I giving the highest priority to the Dharma. Right? So that's how we apply to ourselves. Anything else? No more questions, eh? Alright, just a couple of announcements. Bhikkhu Analayo's book is out. Actually, it's more an article he wrote on the problem of the bhikkhuni ordination, legality of the bhikkhuni ordination. Somebody has printed it for him. There are 4 articles here. They're all the same. One is in English, second one is in Sinhalese, third one is in Thai, fourth one in Burmese. So you have a chance to see all 4 languages here. Please take as many as you want. Pass now to your friends. And from next lesson onwards, we're going to study volume 39. Please collect your copy. Volume 39. The theme is karma. Okay? Alright, so there's no more questions. We'll end here. Analayo is a unique monk. He's also a professor of Buddhist studies. Professor. In fact, I knew him before he became professor, and now he's a professor. He's a young monk. He knows Chinese and Sanskrit and Pali and English, German, probably I mentioned Chinese already. So it's also linked with the Dharma, what is it, Dharma-drum, right? Dharma-drum college right in Taiwan. He's a very erudite scholar. He's very helpful because once he quotes something, he'll give a long list of quotations. So all I need to do is just look up his book and just, copy his references and look it up. He is a very, a German mind, very practical, very sharp and clear.
Was this written after the Wuhan in Taiwan?
Yeah, I think probably after that. Yeah, because there's a lot of, he's writing generally from a scholarly point of view. So he's one scholar who's really erudite and what's called, he often produces works. So he's written many hundreds of articles and books, and I'm on his mailing list. Unfortunately, he sends me his essays every now and then. Okay, so you can go to his website, you can download his articles free of charge also. Okay, no more questions, eh? Okay, let us spend a quiet moment reflecting. So this is our last study for the Lunar New Year, and we close by reminding ourselves of the right priorities in life, and when the New Year comes, also to check, make sure our priorities are right, so that we, number one, give priority to the self, to the world, to the Dharma. Reflecting in this way, we attract happiness and blessings. And above all, we grow wiser, more peaceful, and of great use to others. Reflecting in this way is very good karma, but about such karma, may we attain peace of mind, happiness, prosperity, good health in this life itself. By this same token, and also by all the good deeds we have done, through our generosity, keeping the precepts, studying the suttas, and many other good deeds, may we aspire to be stream winners in this life itself, so that we do not fall into the lower subhuman states. In this moment of peace, let us share, direct our loving kindness to all those people who have made this place possible through their hard work, generosity and patience. To all those people who come here seeking the Dharma, seeking happiness. To all the beings, all the devas in this area, may they be well, may they all be happy. May all of you, each of you here, be well and happy too. May our relatives and friends, our loved ones, our teachers, our students, people we know, even people we do not know who comes to mind, may they be well and happy too. May those untouched by the Dharma too be happily touched by the Dharma and be good and happy people. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
This book is written in order.
Yes.